Hi, everyone, and welcome to our, I think, 7th Game Changer Chat. I'm Tevis Trower, and I'm super psyched to have with me Miss Abby Sugar. And if you have not read about Abby, she is the founder and CEO of Play Out Sportswear. What do you call it?
Apparel.
Apparel. It's a big multi-syllabic word. So I know a little bit about you, but I think just to kind of cue up why we're here having this conversation to begin with is I have a book that's coming out on August 10th called The Game Changer's Guide to Radical Success, and I'm going to show you. It's very beautiful.
It is gorgeous.
Beautiful. It looks good on, right? We could put it.
Well, you should get a shirt printed. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
With some spaghetti straps.
It is summer after all.
A leather harness and some studs.
I mean, that is my style, so I will push for that.
We're gonna go there, I promise. We're going there. But so I was thinking about the fact that this book is coming out now and COVID and everyone's talking about how do we game change and what's our new normal, and God, we're all so sick of that freaking conversation. I did not plan this book to come out now. In fact, I've been beating myself up for probably 8 years that it hadn't come out sooner because it's been in a finished state for quite a while. But as we approached kind of readiness, I started to ask myself, well, gosh, a lot of us think of game changers, right? And we think of people like Elon Musk, or we think of the Richard Bransons of the world, right? Or we think of a Russell Simmons, and everyone has their controversy. So please know that anyone I'm bringing up is not saying they are the Dalai Lama, right? But a lot of times we attribute the ability to pivot in the midst of our lives and to game change not only our own lives, but potentially have a beneficial ripple out effect on the world. We think that, oh, that's for other people, right? I just got to
feels too big. It feels out there.
And so I started to ask myself, kind of in celebration of this book, also because I think all of us need a constant, steady diet of real life examples of normal people who feel fear, who feel trepidation, who struggle through that dark woods of the psyche, and somehow step out and find light, and they share it with others. And so I wanted to each week this summer, basically since mid-June, we've just had a regular old person, superhuman DNA, right? Although they all seem like it when you get to know them, but a normal human being who has said, well, screw it. I don't know if I get multiple go rounds, but I've got this one, and I'm going to see what I can do with it. So that's my preamble. So Miss Abby Sugar.
Well, I'd love to jump in on that actually and grab a couple of those like nuggets, because I think that something you said really resonated with me, which was you were beating yourself up that you've had this finished piece and just haven't brought it out yet. And, you know, you didn't mean for it to align with COVID, with things that are happening right now, but it did perfectly align. And there's a lesson that I am constantly reminding myself. And luckily my best friend, work wife, business partner, co-founder, Elizabeth Leifer, is my voice of reason, and we very much support each other. But something that they say all the time is, you know, if there's something you really, really want to happen, or if you feel frustrated that you're where you are right now and you compare yourself to other people, or even just internally, a place that you want to be that you're not right now, it's not the time yet. And when it's meant to happen, that's going to be the time, and you're going to hit the runway. And so, I mean, and so even though COVID and the pandemic is this thing right now, the timing for your book and for the lessons in your book and for what you're talking about, the people that you're talking to, is magical, I think. And that's how I try. It's not always easy to think this way. Like I said, it's a lesson I'm constantly reminding myself and thinking about. But this is the time, and it's amazing. And that's why we're having this conversation as well.
Well, I want to brag on you for a second, because I know that much about you, which hopefully by the end of this 45 minutes, I'll know a lot more, and so will everyone else. But so Abby Sugar and I met because her company, Play Out Apparel, is it is one of the companies under the umbrella that's joined into the Eureka platform, who we had in our first Game Changer chat, the founder, Dave, who was amazing, and I totally encourage you to look up that chat. But Abby and I got paired up because she's done some fundraising. She has started out bootstrapping her concept. Her partner, her business wife, her business spouse, is from the fashion world, and so they have been steadily building a concept of really gender neutral, like intimate apparel, sports, like stuff that can go out, can be in the bedroom, can be just underneath, can be on top, can be anywhere. And what really touched me about your story, Abby, is not just the kismet of timing, right? It is not just a women-owned business, an LGBTQ-owned business. I think it's the notion that in apparel, right, there's such a spirit of you got to go big or go home, right? You got to get the money from, who was it forever, the Liz Claiborne company had to invest in you. Like someone big had to support you for you to make a go of it, because the pathways to distribution were so constrained, right? That you could be a niche player, but that meant that you had to go and kiss ass at Bergdorf's or Barney's or whatever, maybe get a little bit of shelf space, right, etc. But it's a brave new world.
Absolutely.
And so tell us just what's the headline for people to understand kind of what you're going for, and then I'm going to help you go back into how you came. We're going to roll back the tape.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, I could talk about this forever, because it is my passion, right? Yeah. And it's not just, I want to design some fun thing and I want people to wear it. Like, this is about people wearing clothes that affirm who they are, that are authentic and make them feel good about expressing themselves in the world, right? So Play Out Apparel, we started with making gender equal underwear. And I like using the term gender equal because it's a positive connotation, whereas gender neutral sort of feels like, like there's nothing there, right? And we're social animals, and, gender is a social construct. But when I say gender equal, I mean like all the expression, none of the expression, androgyny, what has stereotypically been assigned styles or expressions for men or for women is available to everyone. It's all equal. So at Play Out, we started with making underwear because that's where we saw the need specifically for me and my friends as a queer person, a queer woman, and a lot of my sort of trans and gender non-binary friends were trying to find underwear that we wanted to wear, that was comfortable, right? And for a long time, it's changed with the way that you were talking about just fashion in general. The lingerie industry as well has changed, even just as recently as the past 2 years. Yeah. But many, many years ago, women's underwear was pink, pastel, lace colored. And men's underwear was like really cool graphics, artistic designs, different styles and shapes. And so if you were a woman that didn't want to wear pink and flowers and lace, what did you wear, right? You had solid colors. Maybe you bought men's underwear, but men's underwear wasn't flattering, right? And I know a lot of sort of people who were assigned male at birth as well that wanted lace things. Yeah. So when we started designing this, we were like, gender's a construct. We're designing clothes. We're designing styles of underwear. Some of them have extra space, extra like fabric in front if you need it. anyone can buy anything. So on our website, playoutapparel.com, there's no men's or women's section. And this is true. We're expanding into athletic wear, athleisure. So this is just true. You just go on the website and you shop.
Yeah.
We have pouch versions, we have flat fronted versions, and everything is available in all the colors. So there's no subliminal allocation of gender based on color. There's no, here's the women's section and it's pink, and here's the men's and the boys and it's blue. We also specialize in prints. So I don't think I got a chance to tell you this last time we spoke, but Liz, my co-founder, is a painter by trade, by education. And so all of our prints, a lot of our prints, they design and paint actual paintings that we then digitize and print on the fabric. So all of the in-house prints are one of a kind. We do limited edition runs. And in addition to that, we work with LGBTQ artists and allies to do special limited edition artist prints. So yeah. Okay,
so everyone who ever sees this, if you're not yet impressed, then I think you aren't paying attention, because because think about the first time you went to get underwear, whether you are a guy or a girl, or like, I remember I was 10, sucked. I was like, this is just wrong. I want to be a little kid longer. But I remember having that aspirational sense, and I would go into my mom's drawer and I would look at her cool frilly stuff, and I loved it, right? But that becomes part of how we identify ourselves, and that's at a really young freaking age, right?
And it can be really stressful if you don't feel like you're in the right body, or if you don't conform to society's standards. Yeah.
Or if what you see never feels reflective of who you are. This is the most primordial clothing. Yes. Like, the first clothing was underwear. Think about it, people.
Yeah.
Like, this is the most, and clothing is a form of self-expression. It's costume.
Right? Absolutely.
It's communication. And so when you and I first spoke that first time, I was so struck by this unconscious assumption that a lot of us may have, whether we are from the LGBTQ community or not.
Yeah.
Oh, this is just how the world is, right? And so I love that vision, and I loved your balls, cojones, guts, ovaries, whatever gumption you had that made you go, well, maybe I can do something about this. So I want to ask you something. Where do you think your ability to give yourself permission to be a change maker came from?
You know, you had emailed me a quick little, like, one sentence version of this question. So I've been thinking about it. And it's something that, you know, Liz and I, we do a lot of these types of interviews in our community, outside of our community, talking to people about being entrepreneurs, talking to people about being super, super queer. I'll ask you if I'm allowed to cuss, because I swear a lot. I'm just—
Wait a minute, you can cuss as much as you want. Super queer,
gay
as opposed to super queer, as opposed to mediocre queer.
Right. Yeah, totally. Yes. I did a podcast.
Okay,
QAF. Yes. Okay. Perfect. I did a podcast a few months ago, the Brave Maker podcast, which about brave stories. So a similar, you know, thing. And I was like amazed at how many times I just said, so gay. I am so gay, and I make super gay clothing. Like, that's what happens. But at any rate, I think that—
Wait. But you had to give yourself permission to love.
That's exactly where I was going to go. Yeah. So I think that for me, there's two avenues or two things that I think about. You know, one is, and I think that maybe they go together, and I don't like making generalizations. Like, this is completely subjective. This is my own experience, right? And so for me, there were two things that I think about, that it's taken me a while the first one, it's taken me a while to process. The second one I sort of think is just a thing. And the first one is that when I was 13, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder, which is alopecia universalis. And so what that is your white blood cells attack your hair follicles. So when I was 13, I have no other health issues, hormone, stress related, whatever. I'm wearing a hat. I don't have hair. I'm super healthy. People think I shave my head and this is a style thing. And I've made it a style thing because it's who I am, right?
Yeah.
But being faced with this extremely forced and differentiating factor when I was a teenager, right, made me different to begin with. And so I think that either you struggle with being made different, and I think we all struggle with that, but especially at that age, you want to fit in with your friends, you want to be accepted and whatever, but it forced me to spend a lot of time processing with myself. Now, you know, when I was that age, was I aware that it was processing and like working through things? Probably not, right? But it did give me a certain resiliency in that way to be different, right?
Yeah.
And a layer of that as well is being gay is a differentiating factor as well. And those two things sort of have not happened, but I processed them around the same time, you know?
Yeah.
So by the time I was in college, it was like, I just unapologetically am who I am, right? And I'm always growing and I'm always changing, and I do a lot of self work in that way. Yeah. But I think that those two things just allow me or have taught me to just show up and be myself, right?
Yeah. Well, the paradigm I like to use for that, and there's a Buddhist kind of a paradigm that the poison is the medicine, right? Like whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Like it's all that, whatever wisdom tradition you want to point to, they're all trying to tell us to wake up and live, right? And the cultural paradigm around conformity, the corrosion of conformity, I still love that phrase because it's just so powerful. I'm an Xer girl, but the question I like to ask people to ask themselves is, are you truly living or just existing? Right? Are you truly flourishing? Like you think of a plant that's just like doing its crazy thing, and the vines and the flowers or the fruits or the whatever, right? Like, can we give ourselves freedom to be that self-expressed and to follow where that will take us? Or do we want to try and put ourselves into a little box, right? Which is what all the box checking that we're told that we should be doing. You know, did I get the spouse? Did I get the title? Did I get the raise? Did I get the house rated, whatever. So when you were a little kid, I have to ask everyone this question: what was fun for you?
What was fun for me? It's a really interesting question. Like, so interesting. So I'm caught on it because of this medical issue I had when I was 13. It was a really hard time, right? You know, you go through it and you come out the other side. But, look, if we're going to talk about my childhood, my life story can be summed up in 3 sentences. My father's a psychiatrist, my mother's a neurologist, and my ex-wife is a neuroscientist.
Jesus Christ, you're surrounded!
So I have a brain problem. But
and a lot of brain solutions, apparently.
Yes. But I sort of, in terms of childhood, had a break when I was 13 and didn't get really sick, but was faced with this growth opportunity and this challenge at that age. I sort of blocked off some memories from that time as a protective mechanism, right? Yeah. So it's I think that I like to acknowledge that when I have these types of conversations. I think it's a really interesting aspect. You know, when I was 18, I sort of said, okay, now you need to value what you're doing, and now you need to value yourself, and you need to create connections with people. But when I was younger, sort of my response to that was shut it down. Yeah. So what did I enjoy doing when I was young? You know, I still to this day, reading and writing, maybe it's cliche, but it's where I go when I need to ground myself.
Words.
And I also, and it's so funny because I read tons of articles from everything from, you know, psychology to startups to business to just fiction, short stories to whatever. And I'm usually reading 2 or 3 books at a time. And whenever I sort of am in not an anxious place, I'll just consume. I'll just read and read and read. And then if I come across interesting things, I'll send them to Liz.
Yeah.
And they always text me and they're like, I know when you're anxious and struggling with things because you just send me mountains of articles and I don't have time to read them. So I've always, since I was a kid, you know, reading was very important. And I think that there's been studies done. It contributes to empathy, to understanding other cultures, whatever, when you spend time reading. I also was an athlete in high school. I'm a certified personal trainer. So yes. So that aspect of focus, but also physical movement is important to me as well. And I like reading, writing. I would say I'm an ambivert, right? I'm not going to say I'm an extrovert, but I do enjoy my friends. I've always been, you know, very social, bouncing between groups. So yeah, it's an interesting question about childhood.
Well, so I'm curious, because I oftentimes feel that when we are forced to embrace what makes us not fit in, right? Mm-hmm. At a young age, that somehow it gives us a grit that serves us, right? And I'm curious because yours, between the alopecia and really knowing I am queer and I'm never going to be anything else, right? So, mm-hmm. so having these 2 really powerful catalysts for self-inquiry, and having these parents who probably had a facility to support it, I would hope. Do you feel like that let you kind of bypass a lot of the conformity that maybe a straight kid with blonde hair and blue eyes?
You know, I don't know, because
I feel like it does.
Well, because everyone has their struggles, right? Like nobody, even if you're the most like gifted person in the world, nobody's going to escape.
Oh my God, I have a quote for you. It's Jim Morrison. No one here gets out alive, right?
Yeah,
and it's true.
Exactly. Love Jim Morrison. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, I don't think that that's fair to say, but I do think that everyone is on their journey at a different time, right?
So did you ever conform?
I mean, not that I know of, right? And it's not always easy though, because sometimes I wanted to conform, right? Like now I've reached a point, it was so funny. One of my dear friends has a 17-year-old son, and these kids are really into their cars and to tricking them out and getting the windows tinted and whatever. And he was saying to me, your car looks like a fishbowl. You need to get the windows tinted. And I was like, why? Sure. Like I sort of understand why, but why? And he goes, because isn't it just super awkward when you're at a light and like the person in the car in the lane next to you looks over and is just looking at you? And I was like, no, I'm hot shit. Take a picture. It lasts longer. You know, but it's like.
You made me snort, Abby. For all of posterity. That'll be the clip, right? That'll be the clip, me snorting.
I don't care if you want to stare at me. Like, that's on you. But I think that everyone, you know, I can say that. And I have friends, I have acquaintances who might be 20 years older than me, and they're just now having certain conversations with themselves, right? I might have a friend who's 10 years younger than me who is processing things or going through something, or even is just at a place in their life, maybe it's in their relationships, maybe it's in their business, that they've had certain successes or certain ways of thinking about things that I don't have yet. And I'm like, oh, I wish even though this person's younger than me, I wish that I had that awareness or that self-knowledge. So everyone's on a different a
Well,
different timeline.
that's a really great, I think, thing to bear in mind is that our teachers can come from any angle, and that experience is not always an arbiter of wisdom.
Totally. Yeah. Because you can have an experience, and if you don't take the time to integrate it or think about it, and I
Yeah.
say this to I spend 50% of my time processing,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's frustrating because it feels like I'm not making like precise
Doing.
growth.
Doing.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's
You're
like,
not doing.
it's scaffolding. It's deeper building blocks.
Okay, so I want to put that in neon, right? Because even with a lot of famous coaches, I was on a coaching show yesterday talking about the book, and the host and I kind of got into it about how do you make progress towards happiness, and he said, well, I have a pie and it's got 9 pieces of it, and at the end of the month I rate how I'm doing against those pie pieces. And I said, well, that's one way to do it. I said, my approach is really to create enough presence in every choice I make that I'm asking myself, am I truly aligning?
Mm-hmm.
Not with an objectified idea of what's going to make me happy, but am I really aligning in this moment
Yes.
with my greatest good, which I really think requires the discipline of contemplation, the discipline of backing up and being with yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
Is a little scary because those woods
totally
can be really
is.
dark.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not necessarily easy, right? I definitely, the funny thing is, I always say, I think I've actually gotten less responsible as I've gotten older.
Amen.
But
Amen.
the thing of it is that in getting less responsible, every bad choice or every bad decision I make, I'm actually 110% aware that I'm making a bad decision. And for whatever reason, whether it's I subconsciously or consciously feel like I need to punish myself, feel like I deserve it. When I make the bad decision, I say, I know this is a bad decision, but I'm in a fuck it place right now, and I'm going to do it anyways. Right?
Yeah, and there's some grace, I think, to that as well. The question is really, does our cycle between alignment and sabotage, are we shortening the cycle between those extremes? And I think that's actually the hallmark. That's what progress is about, because if you never lose it, then you're probably also not going to continue to refine and grow. Right?
Yeah. And I think that there are periods of rapid growth, right? And then there's periods of
the really painful ones where you cry a lot.
Yeah, or it's exhausting. Like, so for example, I feel like you and I could talk for 3 hours, right?
Of course.
But if
we're gonna go on retreat, we're gonna like work out, and we're gonna eat healthy, and then we're gonna smoke 50 cigarettes and do shots.
Yeah. Yes. But if we're gonna talk about business and self-awareness and personal growth and growth in business and whatever, it's not always easy, right? And I feel like personally, I've been in a period of rapid growth. So I came out. I'm currently in California. I'm a New Yorker. I'm in all black. I have my leather hat. Like we were talking about
representing well.
Yeah, I'm a New Yorker at heart, right? But I moved to Silicon Valley to do the Founder Institute Startup Accelerator program. And what it is coming from, however much we have an awareness of our upbringing or not, you absorb it. So I had no background in fashion, no background in business when I started my company. And
you had just been a personal trainer pretty much, right?
I actually worked as a freelance writer and editor.
That's right. Okay.
My undergrad is in English literature and creative writing. I'm a
Okay,
poet.
wait, call out. She had no background in what she is kicking ass in, people.
Yeah.
You don't have to have experience to get experience. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And so my personal motto is fucking figure it out.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I can't do something or I don't know how to do it is an unacceptable answer. The answer is fucking figure it out. And so what I did have a background in was, I think, resiliency and learning. Like, I'm a lifelong learner. I think I don't like that phrase, but as I said,
stuffy, right?
But as I said, I read everything. So if I decide to start a fashion business, I research, right? Like, that's what I was brought up as. But the point was, like, having no background in it, you don't realize how much you absorb as a kid from your environment. So I grew up in a very literary and artistic minded, but medical background, right? Both my parents are doctors. So I didn't realize how much of that, as the child of doctors, I just know, right? Like, I'm living with friends and my friend twists his ankle and he needs to take ibuprofen for the swelling. Well, how much ibuprofen do I take? How often do I take it? And I'm like, oh, you take it every 4 hours. You can take up to 1,200 because that's what prescription strength is, but alternate it with Tylenol so that you preserve your liver. Like, you think I just know that I assume everyone knows, but they don't, right? So, like, if you grow up and you're a teenager and your parents are in business, you're thinking like a business person. So this is all to say, on the journey of, like, accelerated growth, when you are in those times, I decided to come out here in January to do this business accelerator. And I taught myself, I know leaps and bounds more now than I did 5 years ago, just in terms of how do you find a manufacturer? How do you source fabric? What is a cut and sew factory? What is a vertical factory? What is marketing? What is whatever? But I absolutely felt like there were, and people have said to me for many, many years, go to business school. And I'm like, why should I go to school to do the thing when I'm doing the thing? I'm just going to do the thing. Fucking figure it out, right?
Not only that, but you wouldn't learn any of that in business school. I went to business school.
Yeah, right. And I don't want to be in finance, but so when I decided to come out here to do this accelerator and be around, like, learning from being just surrounded by business, right, people, my thought process has changed completely in 6 months, right? So it's this rapid growth, and it is exhausting. Sometimes it's not just learning business and running my business, but it's learning how to be a leader, how to be a CEO. And I obviously, I'm sitting here talking to you, I have a natural inclination towards that, right? I think that it also comes back to what we started talking about, which is, how do you stand out from the crowd? How do you, unconsciously or consciously be okay with that or make a decision to do that? And for me, that comes off as, I'm a very quick thinker and I know what I want. And so I don't want, if there's a group of people and you're like herding cats because people are checking in, should we do this? Should we do that? I'm like, well, this is the thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to go do it. So if you would like to join me on that, this is where we're going. And people sometimes just need someone to make a decision, and I make decisions, right? And so it's leadership in that way, but it's growth, this hyper period of growth, which takes a lot of self-reflection, which takes a lot of internal processing. So that's what I've been doing for 6 months.
But it is so this goes to an ability for discernment, right? Like all that contemplation and space that you give yourself for processing allows you to be that clear in the moment of, this is my choice, right? So this is kind of a question about the somatics of that. And the reason I think it's important is that there are so many ways of knowing, right? There's like, it's in your heart, or I felt it in my gut, or my mind was just screaming at me, blah, blah, blah. And when we're talking about ostensibly COVID, the economy, lack of leadership nationally and globally, corruption everywhere we look, right, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, there's a lot of fear triggers a lot of us are sitting with. And you add on to that the voice inside of us that may say, oh, this scares me, right? So how do you personally discern the difference between this is what I feel that I should do, I'm afraid, but I gotta do it, and oh, this is a form of fear that is telling me not to do this? Like, how do you figure that out? Because I feel like that's a piece of information that helps anyone that might see this, whether they have the same process that you do or their own. It helps us all go, gosh, what is my process?
Right.
For knowing what's a real yes and what's a real no.
Yeah, I think that part of what you're getting at as well is discomfort. How do you sit with discomfort? How do you process it? Is the fear a discomfort? Is it a fear of the unknown? Or is it an actual, like, something that you need to listen to? I mean, I think you should always listen to
Will Robinson. Danger.
Yeah. Is it danger? Is it danger, or is it discomfort?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And I think that for that, for me, it comes down to sitting in the discomfort.
Yeah.
And
so
talking.
Do you sit? Do you have a practice?
I don't meditate. My meditation is more like writing.
Yeah.
Like I sit and I write almost every morning. Not for a long time, and maybe I don't, and it's journaling, right? Sometimes I do write poetry when it comes to me, but sometimes I'm just staring into space for 20 minutes and I write down 3 sentences, right? But it's like, it's all processing. I think everyone can do it, but I think that it takes a long time to trust yourself, to cultivate listening to your intuition in that way. Yeah. And I think it takes a long time. It takes intention. Maybe it's through meditation, maybe it's through journaling, maybe it's through,
gardening, cooking.
Right. But maybe it's also triggered by something that you've gone through, because we get so much pressure from external sources. You should be this way. Don't trust yourself because of something, right? And I struggled through my divorce, and it took me a long time. I had a lot of baggage, and it took me a long time to come back to myself. So that was something that I went through in that way. And to be like, oh, you were seeing things through her lens, and your lens is your own. So for example, even like personally and in business, I started Play Out. My best friend and co-founder joined me. And there was a period of time where I was really struggling. I was like, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. This is, that question of fear, right? I don't know if I'm qualified to do this. I don't know how to do this. And we were stressed. I was stressed out. So they were stressed out. And I said to them, for me, everything comes back to communication. So as long as Liz and I are communicating, if I get freaked out, I'm like, I'm actually not freaked out about anything. I just need to talk through it. And so I said to them, like, I don't know what I'm doing. And they were like, if I didn't think you could do this, I wouldn't be in business with you. If you make a wrong decision, if something goes wrong, we fix it. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah. So permission to fail, permission to experiment, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So if we have this question of fear, am I doing the right thing? As long as no one's lives are in danger, right? I I think you have to sit with it and say, am I fearful because it's scary and uncomfortable, or is this dangerous, right? So I think that when COVID hit, specific to me and my business, I was 3/4 of the way done with this accelerator. It was taking my company to the next level. I had based a lot of business assumptions. This is, what the e-commerce industry looks like. If we are able to, get an investor or put this much money in to drive growth, these are the growth models we can build. And these assumptions are based off of consumer spending habits, right? COVID comes in, all those consumer spending habits are out the window. For the first 6 weeks, because I come from a family of doctors, because I have friends who are nurses, ER doctors, general practitioners, they're on the front lines. And I was sitting here being like, I'm a business-minded person. What the fuck am I doing? I'm useless, right? Yeah. And so then you process that and you work through it and you say, well, people need clothes, people need jobs, and people need clothes that make them want to get up in the morning, that they can put on and feel like themselves, which is what we sort of talked about at the very beginning of this conversation, right? And so I worked through that and then was able to center myself again, right? But there is fear in terms of what is the economy going to look like in 6 months? I was like, if people can't afford their rent, why are they going to buy clothes, right? But there are still people in tech, people whatever, that actually are working overtime. They're working their butts off. They're making a buttload of money, and they are still spending that money. And then we need to support the artists and everyone else. So Liz and I are really committed to paying our influencers that work with us, because that creative content is so important, right? I'm not going to work with someone and say, this is for exposure, right? Like, we're really committed to supporting the whole ecosystem in that way. And then for us, we've always done what I think that if you are fearful, but you're doing something that you believe in with your whole heart, and you're doing something that has a positive impact, you need to lean into that, right? Yeah. So even though Liz and I are like, we don't know what the revenue is going to be, we also have always been committed to supporting especially queer marginalized voices. So Black, Indigenous, POC, trans women, trans men of color, et cetera. So we have been running a Tuesday takeover where we work with influencers, they make a commission, and then we donate 20% of any purchase made with their code to the nonprofit that influencer wants to support. And in addition to that, last week we redid our revenue model because we did a fundraiser in June where 100% for a day, 100% of our revenue went to support Black Lives Matter global initiatives, right? Yeah. And so then that needs to be ongoing. It cannot be, change in this world cannot be a one-time thing. I donated $100. Yeah. The company donated $2,000. Like, then what? Then what, right? Yeah. And so for us, it's imperative that it is part of who we are and what we're doing to create change. So we have built a social good component into our revenue model, which is 20% of our net profits. And 20% is significant when you're a for-profit business.
Girl, tell me about
of our net profits are going to be donated. Yeah. Are being donated to LGBTQ plus initiatives and to Black Lives Matter initiatives.
So I feel like I've got a question I love to kind of close up with, but I feel like you've already kind of hinted at it. And that is, like, we've heard about your life and we've heard a little bit about your resume. What would you want someone to say as a eulogy about you?
Oh, wow. You didn't send me that one. That's so interesting.
That's a pop quiz.
That like makes you think. That's great. That's a great question. I would like, I've been talking with a friend a lot about intentionality right now. So I would like the eulogy to speak to that, I lived and pursued passions with intention,
Yeah.
thoughtfulness.
That strikes a resonant tone for me with you. I think you're on your way, but I'd rather have you at my funeral than me at yours, but we don't have to even go there.
No funerals are happening. How about that?
Nobody's dying. Nobody.
No.
As I'm waiting for my first COVID test to come back. Anyway, let me ask these people, does anyone, hold on, I'm really bad at this. Does anyone want to ask a question of this amazing woman? I'm going to unmute. I see little Marjorie.
You know me, I always have a question.
Yeah. Thank God. You're always good. I always miss stuff. This is my work spouse.
Amazing.
Yes, and I just, this conversation is, I'm really enjoying it, and you've got plenty of passion and commitment, so I think you have no worries about that being said about you. I just was curious, having had no background in apparel, and certainly you had the passion for it. What was the moment when you decided to kind of pull the trigger right on it, for lack of a better term, or just say yes, and I'm going to go for this? Because you didn't have your work spouse then, right? You were doing it on your own.
Yeah. I mean, it really was this certain level of crazy. I always say, I was definitely crazy. My work wife is definitely crazy. But it was we can't find what we want on the market. And I spent days, weeks. I was trying to buy a birthday present for someone. I was trying to buy them underwear. And there certain styles in Europe at the time existed. Oh, they're popping
on. Here now. I
know. You go. This is going to be great. We like to, it's the Liz and Abby show.
Oh, good.
At the time. Yeah. But I spent a long time trying to find something for a gift, and I could find it in Europe, and it was like $30 for a pair of underwear plus shipping and handling. And I was like, this is insane. There has to be something in the US that I can buy. And I couldn't find anything. And I was like, okay, well, I'm crazy. I have to make it. And just decided to do that. And I mean, I spent 3 years in research and development. I mean, like studying the market, teaching myself things. And then I got it to a place, and then my original business partner and I went our separate ways. And I was saying to Liz, who's been in fashion for 20 years, because we had known each other for a couple years before that. And I was like, okay, I have 100% control of my company now. I really, if we want to talk about how to build a company or build a business, I truly believe in having a business partner. There's 500 million things to do constantly all the time. And it's someone to have a skill set that you maybe don't have, or interests that are not your priority, and to bounce ideas off of, right? And so I was saying to Liz, these are my skills. This is what I enjoy doing. I am looking for someone that does these other things, being marketing, social media. I hate social media. Like, I can't say enough how much I hate it. Yeah, it's this necessary evil. So I was like, I really want someone that does XYZ. And Liz was the director of creative production, like on the social more than I am, like all the things. And they were like, well, I do that, and I do that, and I do that other thing. And I was like, and then they said, why don't I just be your business partner? And I was like, if you're serious, I am dead serious. And they were like,
don't tease me. Don't tease.
Yeah. And so now we are in this crazy, we call it the crazy. We're in the crazy together.
Wow. God bless your crazy. And I'm excited for you. I want to go on your site and order some underwears, I should say, like a 5-year-old, right? Some panties. And order some panties, right? So I'm going to go on and order. And where can people buy your stuff?
Yeah, so we are playoutapparel.com. If you Google apparel, play out underwear. You'll find it as well. We, at the end of the month, have new prints. As I said, Liz hand paints them. New prints and 2 new styles coming out at the end of July. So if you're watching this now, it's July 14th or something. In the next 2 to 3 weeks, we'll have new stuff up. And we have boxer briefs, trunks, bikinis, thongs. We're making some longer length boxers and jock straps for all genders.
Oh my God, that is so cool.
So excited about those. Yeah.
Well, if you ever need some R&D support from a 5'6" mid-size curvy person,
oh, for sure.
I'll give you input until the cows come home. I'm super opinionated about everything. Abby, I want to thank you. This was like even more fun. Like I knew it was going to be fun, but this was even more fun. For those of you who have popped in and had a good time, every Wednesday I do these. They're free. You just show up and hang out with us, and you can see the upcoming ones on our site at balanceintegration.com. Just click on the events button. My book comes out on August 10th. It's already up on Amazon. Order my book so you can be a badass like Abby, right? That's the whole point. Or like you, a badass like you.
Yes.
She's already got the Abby thing covered. I think next week we're having Amanda Roman, who's pretty fascinating. She just left Conscious Capitalism. She was the Chief Innovation Officer. And she's going out to do her own thing. I've got a couple surprise guests coming up soon. If there's someone you think is amazing, we're a little overrepresented with women. So we need the men folk to come share their story. So so please send them my way. I'm Tevis Trower, and I'm really grateful that you chose to spend an hour with me and Abby Sugar. So thank you so much. And thank you
for
Abby.
having me. Thank you, everyone.
Have a beautiful morning, Abby. Bye, everybody.